Now imagine, early in 1997, you slip out to ask the local branch of Ladbrokes to offer you odds on a 4-leg accumulator which goes like this. Try to imagine yourself in Ladbrokes in 97. Part A. Labour in power at Westminster continuously for almost 13 years for 3 general elections in a row, with an overall working majority never falling below 66. Part B. A functioning devolved administration in Northern Ireland made up of First Minister and arch-unionist Peter Robinson, with Deputy First Minister and arch-Republican Sinn Féin leader Martin McGuinness. Part C. A Scottish government, albeit a minority administration comprising wholly and exclusively of the Scottish National Party. And Part D, this will blow their minds in Ladbrokes, perhaps most curiously of all, a Welsh Assembly coalition government commanding more than 2/3 of the votes on the Assembly floor, led by a Labour First Minister with a Plaid Cymru deputy. Their computers would simply have been splintered into smithereens. Now, of course, if devolution has been carried along as much by practicality as by theology, this is not to suggest that there are not different political and ideological views about how the constitutional arrangements of the United Kingdom as of now ought to be viewed and conducted. Just as the rebound from 40 years of fascist dictatorship under Franco helped the establishment of devolution in Spain, with particular regard to Catalonia, the Basque Country and Galicia, it's fair to say, I think, that Margaret Thatcher's one-eyed unionism did the same for Wales. After 17 years of being ruled by Governor-Generals representing, among others, seats Worcester, Wirral and Wokingham in the House of Commons, Welsh voters wanted a clear insurance policy against that ever happening again, and the Assembly was that insurance policy. The Labour stance has been, in essence, that devolution offers the people of Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland, each in their different way, the best of both worlds. Now, we in Wales have control over our own great domestic policy fields: health, education, environment, housing, local government, economic development and so on, while retaining the benefits of a UK-wide economy, a UK-wide position in the world, and a UK-wide pool of talent and energy into which we contribute and from which we can shape our collective futures. I cite as an example, would Sir Emyr Jones-Parry, the president of the university next door, have had any influence on world affairs in his previous job if he had been UN ambassador for Wales, not UN ambassador for the United Kingdom? Now, neither formal federalism, the Lib Dem constitutional preference, nor formal independence, as theoretically favoured by Plaid Cymru, have much traction in Wales. The essential contest, therefore, remains between a declining minority, represented by the backward-looking unionism of the 3 current Conservative members of Parliament in the House of Commons, and those who aim to test the temperature of the water with the Welsh public to see how far they want to go in Welsh distinctiveness along the road of devolution. Because Wales is a geographically centrifugal country, with the mountains in the middle and the bulk of the population in 2 arcs near the English border, the precise reverse of the Scottish population disposition, we have to use devolution to bind Wales together in a way that pre-devolution civil society institutions did not do. There are all sorts of reasons why the Scottish National Farmers Union was autonomous, but the Welsh National Farmers Union was not. The same applies to the Scottish Women's Institute or the Scottish TUC, contrasting with the Welsh Women's Institute and the Wales TUC. Now, and you could quote many other examples of that contrast, but the history doesn't matter now. What matters is that pre-devolution, leaders of civil society institutions in Wales had none of the familiarity of their Scottish opposite numbers with either the burdens or the delights of making their own decisions. That is, real decisions that did not have to be referred to head office to be signed off. The support for any package of further powers for the Assembly has to be based on a growing confidence in the use being made of the existing powers. If used well, in a way that appeals to actual, real, live citizens, then confidence grows that we can make more and bigger decisions for ourselves, and decisions that would bring greater benefits than decisions on the same problem that are sent down from head office. Because made in Wales decisions can be better informed by Welsh circumstances. Now, when I look back over the very earliest period of devolution, I sometimes think that we were, in a curious way, lucky to have got off to such an appalling start. Those with longish memories here will recall the wafer-thin majority by which devolution was secured in Wales. How could we forget it? Followed shortly thereafter by the then Secretary of State's ill-fated incursion onto Clapham Common. And when the Assembly first sat in May 1999, there were 4 party leaders in place. I noticed one of them here. Less than a year later, only one of those 4 remained. One had been deposed in an act of internal defenestration. One had resigned to avoid a vote of no confidence on the floor of the Assembly itself. And one was awaiting trial at Knightsbridge Crown Court following an altercation involving a number of young women and a rather dodgy pizza. You might not be surprised to learn that against this background, public expectations within Wales of what the Assembly might achieve were not astronomical. And indeed, outside Wales, the words laughing and stock probably came to mind for assembling into a well-known phrase or saying. Slowly, however, with a majority coalition government in place from October 2000 onwards, the ability to provide competent, reliable and accessible administration began to have an impact on public opinion. The turning point, I believe, came in the autumn and winter of 2000-2001, when a series of tests of an almost Old Testament kind came out of the blue and imposed themselves on life in the Assembly. There was the fuel protests. Then there was the flooding and the washing away of roads like the Bwlch Road in the Rhondda and the Horseshoe Pass in Llangollen. The very large Cora steel closures. And this culminated in foot and mouth kicking off in February 2001 and lasting all of that spring and summer and autumn. They provided the Assembly with a challenge. Could we show what having an Assembly government could do to protect the Welsh economy, Welsh public services, and the Welsh environment?